Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
5:06. Good morning. It's Tuesday, and, the snow has finally stopped for now. It just wouldn't stop all day. I'd go to the window. It's still coming down. It was delightful. What a winter wonderland we're all enjoying now. We love it. It's fantastic. Coming up at 6:15, we're going to talk to our friend Ellen Kamalakis over at VDOT in Northern Virginia and see what the update is on the roads there. In fact, we'll be checking in with all the road mavens of Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. Then at 7:05, Cully Stimson is going to join us about 11 Yemeni terrorists just released from Gitmo by Biden. Boy, he's making the most of his final days to ruin our country. 8:05, Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House. And then at 8:35, Nell Gardner, expert on Britain and the Commonwealth. We'll get his take on what's going on in England right now with this horrific stories about these rape gangs and the Labour government apparently involved in a cover-up of that story. Also, the Commonwealth includes Canada. And did you see yesterday, Julie Gunlock, that Justin Trudeau, on the same day Donald Trump's election is certified by our Congress, Justin Trudeau announces his resignation. Are you tired of the winning yet? I am not tired of the winning.
It was a good day. It was a good day.
I go back to Justin Trudeau going hat in hand down to Mar-a-Lago to talk to Donald Trump and beg him not to put any tariffs on Canada. And Donald Trump's response is, well, maybe if you need us that bad, your economy can't hack it. Maybe you should become our 51st state. Don't worry, you can be the governor. And ever since then, it's like Trump broke him.
Yeah. He was sort of weeping. He was choking up during his announcement yesterday. And, he really should. Boy, he doesn't have much of a legacy. People in Canada really dislike this guy. It's not like he's going out with, sort of on a career high. He has destroyed that country. You see what goes on in Canada, and it's absolutely, but between that and the UK, my God, it really makes you happy to be an American, really makes you appreciate our Constitution and the rights that we have under that Constitution, because, boy, it is tough to be a Canadian. It is tough to be British and complain about the circumstances in the government under which you live. It's very difficult.
Oh, it sure is. I mean, the legacy is the scene from the truckers' strike, in Ottawa, where the truckers were protesting against the draconian vaccine mandates, where they're truck drivers. They sit alone in a truck for 8 hours at a time. And, of course, when they started to protest that, the Trudeau government seized their assets and seized their accounts and debanked them. And you're 100% right. And everyone, Trudeau's legacy is that he's ushered in the culture of suicide in that country, where it's now become a medical sort of recommendation for certain individuals.
And normalized.
Well, have you considered killing yourself?
Yes.
Because it's a lot cheaper than having to pay for your convalescence through our social health care system. That's the Trudeau legacy.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
don't forget, it was just a month ago when Justin Trudeau, that loser, that absolute disgrace, who once stood astride the world lecturing America about how we should be conducting our affairs, after the loss of Kamala Harris in the election, he had this to say, lecturing all of us.
Shouldn't be that way. It wasn't supposed to be that way. We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist.
There, doesn't that make you feel better, Julie? He's a proud feminist. He wants you to know that. It's amazing that kind of, strong, assertive, sort of focus on our own issues here in Canada sort of attitude didn't win him public support. But apparently the Canadians are like, why are you lecturing America about who they chose for president? And by the way, it should also be noted quickly that Justin Trudeau's path to power to become prime minister meant he undermined and threw under the bus and stabbed in the back several women who were actually ranked higher than him in his own party in Canada so that he could become prime minister.
Well, again, look, I agree that the Canadian people need better leadership. They need a better prime minister, but the Canadian people have passively allowed this to go on. They have elected absolute tyrants. And, the Canadians are so nice, it's not nice to put your fellow citizens through this. It's not nice to make your fellow citizens vulnerable to tyrannical leaders like this. I'm glad he's out. But I really am embarrassed of my own Canadian sort of heritage, and feel that it's time for change. But really, Canada worries me. It really does. I think the people are way too passive and take this abuse way too easily.
Well, it's very similar to America in that if you talk to some of the Canadians that live out in Calgary and some of the more rural areas, and they're actually pretty badass. They like their hockey. Yeah. They actually like their guns. They have to hide them from the government.
Yeah, but even them, they still brag about nationalized health care, right? It's their big.
Oh, true.
Like, oh, they're
no, it's
so impressed with it.
Absolutely a cult.
They're delusional.
Yeah. What do you think happens next with Justin Trudeau, by the way? Does he I see he's very young. I think he'll run again. It's not like he has any other discernible skills. Or he could be, celebrated on the world stage. He could get some sort of chairmanship at the World Economic Forum, or he could just go back to his mother country, Cuba.
Right, exactly.
And sort of, live off of the legacy of his father, Fidel.
Yeah, I think he's going to come out, not just as Fidel's son.
As gay?
Oh, yes. Are you kidding? Yes.
Oh, I didn't see. Now I didn't. I guess that's true. He does like dressing up in costume and blackface. That's an indication. All the makeup that he
I believe
wears.
there are rumors. I don't think I'm the first. Allegedly.
Wow.
And so yeah.
Well, that's not very progressive of him to stay in the closet.
Well, he was married for a while, so there were some family tensions.
Well, weren't we all?
Anyway. So, I think he has a bright future as
that'd be fascinating. Well, that'll certainly improve his political opportunities there in Canada. That's
first
for sure.
Gay mayor of Canada.
Well, Papa Labatt's and toast our neighbors up to the north. They don't have to be our 51st state necessarily, but we'd love to have more cooperation with them. We'd love to have a better trade situation. We'd love to have an open border with them.
I'd rather focus on Greenland.
Well, that's all part of the package. I'm just trying to soft pedal it. Either way, Canada is going to be a little bit better off without Trudeau in charge. And now we're ready for Pierre Poilievre, the conservative leader who famously munched on that apple while dismembering a member of the press for trying to paint him into a corner as a right-wing Trumpy populist.
Larry,
Pierre Poilievre is fantastic.
Should I ask Niall Gardner? He's so about the gay rumors? Probably not. No, I shouldn't ask. He's so
Niall's down for anything. He's great on Meghan Markle stuff too. Whatever you want. We love Niall Gardner, and he will be joining us at 8:35 to explore the Trudeau resignation and also what's going on in England, which is disconcerting. In a moment, though, there's a huge scandal brewing out of Washington D.C. It involves Kamala Harris. It's Handshake Gate, or more accurately, it's Canegate. We'll give you all the details in a moment. First, though, it's 5:15.
MAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So the video caused quite a stir on social media yesterday as Kamala Harris oversaw the ceremonial swearing in of Senator Deb Fischer of Nebraska for her second term, I believe it is. Her husband, Bruce Fisher, was standing there between the senator and the vice president holding the family Bible as Senator Fisher swore with one hand up in the air and the other hand resting on that Bible. Then after the swearing in, the vice president shakes Senator Fisher's hand, and she turns to her husband, Bruce, to shake his hand. Now, at the moment that she turned to shake his hand, Bruce was still staring down and sort of lost in the moment, looked up at Vice President Harris and just politely nodded his head, but refused to shake her hand. Kamala Harris then reacted in sort of a, oh, pardon me sort of way, with a smirk and a raise of an eyebrow, and then turned the other way and stood posing for a still shot photograph to capture the moment of Senator Fisher being sworn in. And that little video clip that I just described caught fire on the liberal left in social media. One person in particular shared it, and it became a viral sensation. This person actually used to be a producer at MSNBC. His name is Brian Tyler Cohen, and it's fascinating. He has a podcast now called No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, and he shared that video on X, the Everything app, Julie, that said, look at this guy refusing to shake the hand of Kamala Harris, snubbing the vice president. See, this is the problem with MAGA. No Lie with Brian Taylor Cohen, you'll be not very surprised to learn, is lying here. That's not the entirety of the story at all, Julie, once we saw another angle of that video, right? Oh, we can't hear you, Jules.
Sorry. First of all, I think it was a leak. This was so subtle that if you had been watching on CNN at home, just watching the stuff, would probably have missed it. It was really subtle. You had to really pay attention. So I think it was Kamala's office. This is my theory, that Kamala's office leaked this to Brian Taylor Cohen, because this was painful for Kamala. You saw it was totally cringe. She was obviously white knuckling it the entire day, getting through this day of certifying this election. And so I think this is a little bit of revenge, right? And obviously Senator Fisher is a MAGA Republican, a Trump-endorsed candidate. So I think this was intentional. You described it perfectly. This was a case of a man who's obviously balancing himself. Anybody who has... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I haven't revealed what was
so sorry.
What was cropped out yet. I would, if you'd like to, because there's more to this picture. Later, we got a different angle on the video.
Yeah.
And it turns out that Bruce Fisher, the husband of Senator Deb Fisher, with his left hand, yes, was holding the family Bible. With his right hand, the hand that he would have used to shake Kamala Harris's hand, one assumes, was holding on to a walking cane. The gentleman is disabled. And he was holding himself up with that cane.
Yes, and it's important to just really quickly, Larry, sorry. It's important to say from an optic standpoint, he had black pants on, the cane was black. You actually had to close in on it, and you saw this through editing. You finally saw, someone had put a closed, camera on it and figured out that, oh, there's a cane there. You wouldn't have noticed it. And I don't think Kamala would have noticed it. His hand was sort of tucked in to his side.
Well, it's interesting. She does in the video look down at his hand, and I don't know how she couldn't see it, unless the Bible was blocking the way. Here's the other thing, because some people had said, well, he could have, done something else, or I don't know what he could have done if his hands were full, but he could have acknowledged that his hands were full. But here's the thing. If you also look at this video again, and we'll repost it on our social media platforms there, you'll see that as Kamala Harris moves her hand over to Bruce Fisher's location there to ask for a handshake or offer a handshake, Mr. Fisher is lost in thought, as I mentioned. He's looking down at the family Bible. At the end of the swearing in, as his wife is shaking Kamala Harris's hand, he's still staring at the Bible. And I don't know this. You have a theory. I have a theory. My theory is that he was saying a prayer. I think he was lost in prayer. I think he was praying. He was looking at the Bible, and she sort of disrupted the prayer.
Yep.
And then he couldn't shake her hand because he didn't have a hand.
He was holding a Bible in one hand. He was holding a cane in another. I totally agree with you that he was lost in thought. He was lost in prayer there. He was in
the moment. His wife just got sworn in as a U.S. senator.
Let's face it. I don't think Kamala has much experience with prayer. Okay?
With prayer.
So she's totally confused. I'm kidding. I think this was intentional. I think she was insulted. And as I said on Twitter, on X yesterday, let's face it. To be fair, Kamala expects you to drop everything. Babies, puppies, Bibles,
don't you know
canes,
who I am?
Fall to your knees if you have to shake my hand.
The headlines: Republican's husband goes viral after refusing to shake Kamala Harris's hand. Senator Deb Fisher's husband refuses to shake Kamala Fisher's hand. The senator's husband refuses to shake VP Kamala Harris's hand over and I'm just reading a quick search on your favorite search engine. These are the headlines. GOP senator's husband snubs Harris's handshake during swearing in. It's nowhere in there is it pointed out that he was holding himself up with a cane. The man is elderly and he's disabled.
I also want to. Well, it doesn't matter, but it does matter how the left reacted to this with such cruelty. Such cruelty. The name calling, the accusations on the left about this man were so disgusting. There was no self-control. People just, without knowing the facts, just went after this guy, calling him names, calling his wife names, saying he was disrespectful, calling him a piece of trash. I honestly, Larry, nothing surprises me anymore. The reaction to this and the left's cruelty towards this man who had a cane and a Bible in his hands, it was shocking. People are so unhinged on the left. And again, I know it was a painful day for them, but boy, did they show their anger.
It is 5:24.
Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. It's O'Connor and Company this Tuesday morning, January 7th. Yesterday, Donald Trump's election victory in 2024 officially certified through the Electoral College and the House of Representatives. So now we just got to get rid of all this snow to have a good inauguration party in 13 days. Let's get that done, shall we? No one wants to go to the inaugural speech standing in a foot of snow on the National Mall, all right? Let's just clean it up. You know, use blow dryers. What do we have to do to melt this stuff? Coming up at 7:05, Cully Stimson on the 11 terrorists that Biden just released from Gitmo. At 8:05, Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House. And then at 8:35, now Gardner on all things British Commonwealth. That includes Canada. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Speaking of Canada, you know Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful. We like that guy. I like that guy. He's sort of tell it like it is, sort of political commentator, right? And he's a businessman, and he's Canadian. And when last we checked with him, he was actually going to go meet with Trump in Mar-a-Lago, and he was going to make a pitch to him about, all right, you know, this whole 51st state thing, no joke, that could be a good thing. Canadians are on board with it. So yesterday he revealed quite a bit about his meeting with Donald Trump, including the question of Canada. Well, let's get that out of the way first.
Issue.
I had two topics that I wanted to talk to him about. Number one was integrating Canada towards a North American Union for greater strength, just period. The world's a difficult place these days, and most Canadians would like to look at that opportunity without giving up their sovereignty. So low-hanging fruit would be combined currency, for example, combining the Bank of Canada with the Fed, things like that. We are the largest trading partners. And just to ask him, because this was on Saturday, to say these meetings you're having with Trudeau and finance ministers from Canada, with all due respect, sir, are a complete waste of time. This guy's going to get eradicated out of the Canadian political landscape. Give the Canadians a chance to re-elect a leader, just like you got re-elected, that has a 4-year mandate, just like you have, and let's get down to business. And
I love O'Leary so I love that he's down there saying, hey, just so you know, Trudeau's done. Don't even waste your time negotiating with him.
Right.
But can we, because there's other huge news coming out of Kevin O'Leary that he's poised to purchase TikTok. I want to share that in a moment. But on the idea of this Canada Union or North American Union, obviously bringing Mexico into something like that is very complicated because of the volatility of their currency. But if there was a union between the United States and Canada with a shared currency, because, you know, they're our number one trade partner, and it's always so annoying to have to deal with Canadian dollars, and it's annoying for them to come down here and deal with American dollars because they're always like 7 cents off, 6 cents off, or, you know, it fluctuates. What do you think of that idea? And then some shared security where we no longer have to it's easier to cross between the two borders. We don't have to worry about our northern border. We can focus our security on their northern border, which actually is a national security risk with Russia and China.
I'm not sure I'm in favor of shared currency. I think there are problems associated with that, but I will say I am very much in favor of this sort of greater union, and especially on the security front. Look, we know China and Russia, North Korea, are all working together. There are some bad actors that are you know, really becoming very close allies. You could say always have been, but are even more determined to ally themselves against many countries in Europe and the UK and the United States. And I think that this is important. And,
a more cooperative national security stance between our two nations, which involves our military, frankly, sort of shoring up what their military is incapable of doing right now on the northern border, I think makes a lot of sense. And also the ability to better transport goods and services from Alaska, where we're still drilling a lot of oil and things. If we can break through their northern border, there's a lot of ice up there. And then once Greenland is taken care of, it actually makes the trade routes from Alaska and from the West Coast that much easier to Europe and to our East Coast, especially if Panama Canal ends up being a problem with China.
Well, and I also think that the United States is going to have a reckoning with these cartels in Mexico. And I think to get the Canadians involved in this, and obviously Greenland, love that. I think that in cooperation with the Mexican government, however, that might be not always easy.
Yeah, that's the tougher part.
I get
the
it,
easier part of a union is U.S. and Canada.
Yes,
for sure.
yes, exactly. But I do think the coming war on the cartels is something that the United States and Canada should join together and fight together.
Interesting. All right, and then that moves us to the other big news that Kevin O'Leary, Canadian for now, shared on Fox News yesterday. Here's cut 4. This is raising eyebrows everywhere.
I had another agenda item that was very important to me, and we announced that this morning. I have joined with Frank McCourt to buy TikTok, and this is a very complicated deal. It's a multi-billion-dollar deal. We're going to have to work with President Trump. This is a bipartisan situation. We have to work initially with Biden, and we want to. And then on midday, 12:05, Trump will be who we have to work with to close the deal in the months ahead. So I wanted to let him know, as well as others in his cabinet, that we're doing this, and we're going to need their help.
That's huge. That's huge. And, listen, I don't know if TikTok's ever going to go away, but there's obviously a law that's pending enforcement right now that bans TikTok in the United States of America until it is completely divested from the Communist Party of China. The only thing that achieves that ultimately is brand new ownership. It would force a sale, and Kevin O'Leary says that he's put the financing together to be the new owner of TikTok. Social media itself is not bad. It's how it's used and how it's abused. It's been abused to warp the minds of our children. TikTok has, deliberately by the Chinese government, I believe. And this could keep that platform thriving and free and less damaging if we get sounder leadership owning that company. That could be an amazing thing.
It could be, and honestly, I worry so much about TikTok. I worry so much about its influence on our young people today. The algorithms that really harm and attract sort of gross, damaging, anti-American content to young minds in America, yet in China, they're directed towards take this math quiz,
Right. They're directed towards learning how to play the violin and doing calculus, and young kids here are directed
hate your country, be cool.
Encourages them to hate their country and chop off their genitals. So this is a great, and we've seen what a new owner can do with what Elon Musk did with Twitter and X. So this is all very encouraging signs. Most encouraging, of course, I want to remind you that Justin Trudeau is no longer the Prime Minister of Canada. Well, you got some big news out of Washington, D.C. here yesterday, obviously, with the transition officially underway now between the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration, but also of a political nature and, frankly, also of a religious nature. We're now learning of the transition of the Archbishop of the Washington, D.C. diocese. Out is Cardinal Wilton Gregory, who has announced his resignation, and the Pope has officially accepted it. In, controversially, is Cardinal Robert McElroy. He is currently the Bishop of the San Diego diocese, and he will now become the Archbishop here. If the name sounds familiar, well, because he used to work with He used to work with former Cardinal McCarrick here in Washington, D.C. In fact, he has been accused of participating in the cover-up of much of the sexual abuse that occurred in the Washington, D.C. Archdiocese under McCarrick. He was the number 2, and now he's certainly been rewarded with a high-profile promotion. He also has incredibly vexing stances on issues such as participating in the Eucharist, even though you're in grave sin. That means being in a illicit remarriage or engaging in homosexual activities. If you're doing such things, you're not supposed to be receiving the Eucharist. He seems just fine with it. It seems like the perfect Archbishop for Washington, D.C. to allow all the Democrats who were pro-abortion to be able to continue going to church and acting like they're faithful Catholics.
My theory is this is absolutely Pope Francis's reaction to the election of Trump, and he is putting someone into the D.C. diocese to lead the D.C. diocese that will push back on Trump's immigration policies. He has publicly come out to say that mass deportation is contrary to Catholic belief. So I think this definitely is politics from the Vatican. It's unfortunate. And I last night actually was corresponding with a sort of prominent Catholic writer who said one word in reaction to this appointment, and this is a wonderful Catholic writer. His one word was tragic. I think there's a lot of concern about this.
Well, you know me, the eternal optimist, and so let me just say there's 2 really great things coming out of this appointment for Catholics in this area. Number 1, it allows us to re-educate ourselves about the power that a bishop and a cardinal has over a diocese or an archdiocese and what they don't have. They can be wrong. They are fallible. And when they get involved with things that don't involve our faith, our morals, and the doctrine and the dogmas of our church, well, they can have their opinion, but they can also be wrong about their opinion, and it's our responsibility respectfully to speak up if we disagree with them. The whole idea that mass deportation is contrary to Catholic doctrine, well, I have the same copy of the Catechism of our church, which says that every nation has a right and a responsibility to protect their sovereign borders. So I respectfully disagree with the Cardinal on that. The second really, really positive thing about this is hopefully it will draw even more attention to your fantastic Diocese of Arlington, which is just less than a mile south of D.C. across the Potomac, and is night and day in terms of how the faith is practiced, and it's growing, it's vibrant, it's wonderful. The Arlington Diocese is incredible for Northern Virginia, and, well, it shows you exactly what the choices are here for Catholics.
Look, you're so positive. I know we're up on against a break, but really quickly, and I don't mean to be an Eeyore here because you just laid out some really positive things about this, but I do want to also mentioned that last night I read that he is hostile to homeschoolers. He actually put in place some restrictions on homeschool co-ops using Catholic facilities, meaning conference rooms or, community centers connected to Catholic churches, and sort of Catholic halls. I think in Northern Virginia, that's important to know, and in the Washington, D.C. area, because there is a thriving and growing homeschooling, especially with our schools around here, which are so crazy. So just be aware, homeschool parents, this could be bad news.
We look forward to using this platform to draw distinctions and important differences between how incoming Cardinal McElroy covers these things in the D.C. Archdiocese, and we will also respectfully, when we have to disagree, let all of our listeners know that they can be a good Catholic and disagree with their bishop. It's 5:54.